and welcome to Sports Talk. I'm your host today, Frank Noppenberger, and with us in this special show is our retired girls soccer coach, Mr. Lou Kosa. Lou Kosa, for some of you who may not know, is the most successful girls soccer coach in the state of New Jersey, and possibly has the most possible number of wins. That depends on parochials and private schools, but for right now, he's most successful public school girls soccer coach. Lou, let me just go through a welcome, by the way, Lou.
Thank you very much.
Let me just go over a couple numbers here and correct me if I'm wrong. 527 wins, 63 losses. From first program was in 1978, and then you retired last year, which was 2005. In that time, eight state titles,
Right.
which I'm sure is unmatched anywhere. A #1 ranking in the country 1 year. That's the year you and I went down to receive the award in D.C. And GMC champions 24 years.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I would guess there's like 24 division titles in there and probably 20-something sectional titles. But, you know, we're not here just to talk about that.
The sectional titles are kind of tough to go through because they really didn't have sections at that time.
In the beginning?
In the beginning.
In 1970s. In the 70s there weren't.
Right. They didn't really start with that until around the 80s.
All right, well, we're going to talk about that later, about the evolution, if that's the word, of girls soccer and how it's changed. But first, I think everyone wants to know about Louie Kosa. So we want the audience to tell us a little about you, Lou. I know you're a graduate of South River.
Right.
Okay, so tell us, you graduated from there when? You played what sports? Then you went to college in New Jersey. Tell us a little bit.
Lived and born in South River, still do. Went to William Campbell School in South River.
The one that's no longer there.
That's just got, well, actually, they
put
just
a new one up.
put a new one up. Took the old one down, put a new one right up. It's unbelievable what they did. Played, I went to, again, you know, going back, it's the South River High School, the old school.
Downtown.
And that's way downtown in the middle of South River. That's gone now too. I went to 1 year to Rutgers. My major at that point for the first time.
Before we get to Rutgers,
Sure.
Yeah, at South River, they didn't have soccer back then, but I know you played football. Played
Right.
baseball also?
Football, baseball, basketball, the big three, so to speak, over there.
All right, and then you went to Rutgers for a year.
Right, and Trenton State, which is now College of New Jersey. Didn't play any, I did intramurals over there. And that was it. Really,
Right. How did you end up at East Brunswick? I know there's a lot of East Brunswick, South River connections, but
yeah.
I'm sure a lot of the old timers like me would like to know about that.
Well, we went, I went to, like I said, Trenton State, and then you had to, I guess they still do it, where you have to go and
Student teach?
do student teaching. You know, and I was fortunate. One of my old math teachers over in South River was John Budnar, and you know, since it was very close, East Brunswick, you know, they had this started, I guess, 4 or 5 years ago with a high school in East Brunswick. So I sort of talked to John Budnar, who was then our department chairman at East Brunswick, and he asked me would I do my student teaching over there, and I said, sure, you know, sounds good. And the last day I was there at East Brunswick, it was, I think his name was Joff Nunez. He was the superintendent at that time. And see, at that time, mathematics was like very hard to find.
Math teachers.
Math teachers. And so it worked out well. And, you know, he came in to observe me. In fact, that day I had, I guess it was 8 or 9 other schools looking at me, so to speak, you know, in the classroom and all like that. And at the end, he just walked over and they asked me if I would consider teaching there,
Right.
which I did, and I've...
What year was that? 62, 63?
62.
That was good for my
62.
memory.
All right.
And I know you didn't coach football, and I'm not sure if they had soccer in 62, but I know you coached baseball.
Yeah.
What else did you coach at EB?
At East Brunswick, no, well, the only thing I did was, I did try to coach. We did, I guess, for 2 or 3 years, they would have the little kids come up and, we'd show them different things like that. And I was really interested in coaching football, and unfortunately, I didn't,
Well, I know you
didn't get
interviewed.
it. So
I know you interviewed, and the story was it was between you and Charlie King, the former principal superintendent. Right?
yeah,
And then Charlie went to football, and then
and I
didn't you
went
go to soccer?
Actually, not for 2 years,
No?
2 or 3 years, and then like I really wasn't doing anything, so I would help out a little bit. I used to work with the punters,
Right.
and kickoffs and stuff like that, and then Leon Floric, who, in fact, he was also when I did my student teaching, he was my cooperating teacher.
Right.
So it was like a good old South River boy
guy,
thing,
right.
and but it was interesting. So I went there and I helped them out for a couple of years, and then they opened up a sophomore program,
Right.
and I did that for quite a few years. Like I think about 7, 8, whatever the case
Yeah.
was.
For the audience out there, years ago, East Brunswick soccer, before girls, there was a varsity, a JV, a sophomore,
Right.
and 2 freshman programs at Churchill, one at
Right.
Churchill and one at Hammersholt. And the sophomores used to practice in the AM, correct?
Correct.
Right outside back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. Okay, Lou, so let's go back. So now Louie is our head girls soccer coach. We're going to jump around a little bit, but do you have a most memorable season and or game? I know I have a couple after watching you for 18 years.
I think the first memorable game that we had was in 1986. That was our first time that we made it to the States, and the Group 4 level, and that was an outstanding game. We had some really young kids, and with them being so involved in it and getting involved, because if I go all the way back, just back it off to 78, we were just kick and run. By the time 86 came around, we had our own set.
Right.
In fact, I still use a lot of the set pieces that we
So
use.
that was your first state championship?
Right.
And who was on that team? Give me a couple names.
Lori Feller.
Okay, that was the Lori Feller group, and that was down College in New Jersey they played it?
Yes. Yes, I'm trying to, yeah.
All right.
And we had Sue Kerr.
How about some games? Any memorable games?
Well, like I said, that first state tournament game was the big one, because we finally, quote, made it. So we got to the point where then we had a nice run for quite a few years there. We went to 86, 87,
89, 90,
89, 90, 92, 94,
96, and 01.
96, and now all of a sudden
Yeah.
they're catching up to us.
Well, I think soccer is gone, but how about that first game? You remember your first opponent as a varsity girls soccer coach?
I was North Brunswick.
North Brunswick, wow, years ago.
Yep.
All right. What I want to talk about now is how East Brunswick girls got started. It was the first year, of course, was in 78. Tell us where you practiced, because people out there, our audience thinks that those soccer fields were there forever. Remember, there was the apple orchard. There was no soccer fields. There was no soccer fields there. So where did we practice? Tell me about that first practice, because you've shared a couple stories.
Yeah, we got bussed over, and since it was a brand new thing, I figured
You got bused to Irwin School, right?
Irwin School, and I had my car in my big Ford over there, and I jump out, and then the bus pulls up, And I figured, wow, a bus, how many kids could be there? And when they pulled the bus up, I said, man, I couldn't believe it. There were 60 players, or 60 girls who wanted to play. So I'm, like I said, I'm with the boys' background. I'm sitting there, and I'm going to be like a tyrant. So I come over and said, all right, girl, let's get going, right? And they all start cowering over there. They didn't know what was going to go on. So I said, all right, take a lap. So we sent around Irwin there, around the outskirts there. And then I grabbed two or three girls, and I said, you guys are my, leaders today. Circle them up. Now you're talking 60 kids, all circled up over there, right? And so I'm screaming and yelling. I'm getting all like that. And so I said, do your jumping jacks. Everybody was okay with that. Do the sit-ups. There's no problem with that. And I said, all right, do some push-ups. Well, that was it. They couldn't do a push-up. They, maybe about 4 or 5 out of the 60 could do the 5 push-ups, right? So I'm sitting there, and said, So we had to adapt and or change our.
Right. There was a soccer club in town then, right? So some of these kids came in with experience, I'm sure.
I think that was, there weren't that. It wasn't. I think they were just starting it. They had the group starting over there, and I'll tell you what.
So
that played a big part first.
Right. So if you practiced at Irwin, is that where you played the games also?
No, we played the games right in the back of the.
In the outfield.
Outfield.
Because the boys' varsity.
That's where the boys played.
Boys' varsity was in the outfield of the current baseball field.
Right.
Football, because I was coaching then, we had to walk to Central School. That was always fun.
Yeah.
And field hockey was out on the practice football field too.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
They were the days. Lou, we talked a little bit about girls soccer and how far they've come. What major changes have you seen with girls soccer over the years? Let's face it, you've been here from 78 to 05. From not being an Olympic sport to now it's one of the big-time sports.
Big-time ones, right. Just the change itself in the type of kids that are playing and the skill levels are like unbelievable. Like I said, we before I tried to get 5 push-ups, that was a lot. Now, like halfway through, maybe in the late 80s, they could do all those different things.
React to my assessment. My assessment of girls soccer over the years is very similar to girls basketball. We are leaving the finesse of the game into a power game and playing more like the boys. What do you think? You see it that way?
Well, I try not to. Okay, I still like the finesse part of it. Going through there and banging people, and you could hear the other coaches yelling out, knock them down, get them, and you could even see them taking legs out.
Right.
And I think because of the the pros that the way they're playing now, everybody thinks, well, if you get beat, just take them down, and then you'll restart the whole thing like that. That's one of the things that I really do not like.
You agree then it's become more of a physical game than the finesse.
Right.
Yeah, I see that, and I don't know if it's the male influence on as coaches or what, but it's definitely more physical. And how about the last 2 games at Woodbridge, the GMC finals? Not at Woodbridge, but they were as physical as any game I've seen.
Exactly.
Right. What changes would you like to see in girls soccer, women's soccer?
Well, I think I saw Heather one time, and I mentioned, you guys have a timeout, don't you? And she says, yeah, they just instituted that, and like on the college level, I don't know if they still do it.
Right.
Okay, but one of the things I would like to see them do is have a timeout. We go for 45 minutes, or 40 minutes at the high school level. All right, if you're going to go 40 minutes, and and the kid's going to run for 40 minutes, I think it takes a lot out of the game because they start dying. They're not doing as much as they should be. I've been fortunate by having a lot of players. I still use the 5 or 6 man putting subs in. And but you see, if we go away from that and we do give them that one timeout, I think it would make it a heck of a lot better game, because then you could keep your top players in there.
Well, this is going to sound like we rehearsed it, but I know you and I spoke about this last year, and being the chairman of soccer in the conference, I've tried to institute this into the regular season rules and regs, and all the soccer people, nope, they don't like it. They're purists, and that's okay. I was a purist. I was against three-point shot too way back when. But don't forget, soccer has evolved. Remember when they used to determine the winner of a tie game on corner kicks?
Corner kicks.
So eventually I see that timeout being instituted in there. Remember, there was never a shootout or a golden goal or a sudden victory.
They would just count the number of corner kicks or the number of times you'd kick the ball over the end line.
Or the game would end in a tie. And now we've got an overtime in women's soccer, girls at the high school level.
I'll tell you what, on that level, we weren't part of it, but one of the teams that we were going to play on the boys level, I think it was Newark East Side, and I can't remember who the opponent was, but they went for full game, overtime, right? Another overtime, right? Now they got too dark. So then they had to come back the next day.
Right, that happened.
Right, they played another full game and another overtime before they finally got
a winner, because that's what the rules used to be. Now I believe they discontinued.
Now continue.
Good. Louis, in the fall, after a lot of years in the fall, what are you going to miss the most? September 9th, which is opening day.
Opening day.
What are you going to miss the most? Or today is opening day of soccer practice.
In fact, I just rode by, to cut the, because I come from South River right across the road. And it's not
by habit, your car just went in the entrance after all those years? Yep.
I don't know. I think I'm going to miss seeing the kids develop, see if we have a team that we could, really do something with.
I think most coaches, what they miss is that camaraderie, that togetherness you create with a team, and the fun and the relationships. And after a lot of years, that's tough.
It's going to be interesting.
And then the excitement of day games, of tournaments, right?
Well, see, I'm going to be probably at an advantage, because I have my 10-year-old granddaughter and my 13-year-old grandson. They both play soccer, and they're down at the Diedrichsons, and actually I'm down watching them at Central, and because my son is going to be away for a while, and his wife, is she has to travel. She don't get back from work until close to 6. So I'm like the
soccer mom.
Soccer mom.
Soccer.
That's a good point.
Good.
That's a good word.
All right, Lou. You were very successful in boys baseball.
Well, I don't know about that.
Yes, conference championship.
We had conference championship.
We were good. I'll
tell you what, that's one of the things that I really look back on. Like in '86, that was our first state championship in girls soccer. That was also, we won the
GMC over in New Brunswick.
Over New Brunswick, right.
We had one pitcher, Hockman, pitched all
Steve
4
Hockman,
games with the curveball.
And we had
He had Wayne Zach, Siafi, Monaseski played third.
Third, right.
He smacked a lot of homers that last game.
Yes, we did.
I was there.
Some good hitters.
Louis, you've coached boys and girls. Could you compare them? We hit on that a little bit. Is one easier than the other?
If you asked me that 5 years ago, I'd say yeah. Now, there is no difference. It's like all molding together over there, and I don't know if I like it or I don't like it yet.
Yeah. Well, I believe successful coaches, and I'm sure you did this, they don't coach boys or they don't coach girls, they just coach. I mean, I think kids want to have demands on them, and they want to be challenged, and not to have high expectations of practice routine or workouts.
Right.
I think is a mistake, and I know you've done that. All right, we're going to steal a little bit of my man Kay, and do a word association game like they're doing that Yankee show. I'm going to give you a name, and then I want to hear what you have to say about it, okay? And don't pull a Yogi when I say Mickey Mantle, don't say what about him, all right? So the first one is Liam Florick. We hit him up.
We sort of like indicated that already because he was like my mentor in both the math, situation, and with he taught me a lot. Like when he let me go out there and like I said, I was really geared in toward the football scene. But when he started talking to me about different things, what would you do there, and it was interesting.
He was our second.
He was the second coach. A lot of people think that he was the first coach.
Men, we're talking men's boys soccer.
Right, but really he wasn't. Whitey Waldorf, who then moved. Well, he was up at the high school. I think they still were like all grouped together, like 7th, 8th, 9th, right on through up at the high school there yet. And then when he moved, or when they moved the 7th and 8th grade down to, I guess it was Hammersholt. I think. Well, I know. That's when Whitey said, well, because I think he was going to be like a department chairperson there at that time. So he went down to Hammersholt, and Leon just stepped up one, and he was coach for a long time.
Sure he was. He was he was Mr. Soccer in East Brunswick.
Yes, he was.
Okay, another Mr. Soccer, Dan Haston.
Dan Haston, I still remember as a young sophomore, as he was playing for me. I was, coaching
That's
the
interesting.
He had the strongest shot I have ever seen. All right, he could take a ball down with his back to the goal area, and in a split second, take a shot. And he was like a dynamite player.
Yep. Brian Merrigan, your longtime assistant.
My buddy. Yeah. It's one guy that I'm going to miss. He, again, he helped me out a lot. He was one of the guys where he was, everybody used to say, or does say, that I'm like laid back and all like that. Well, he's the guy that keeps me straight.
No, he's a good
every
man.
so often I'll go through, all right, coach, we're going to do this. He says, Lou, sure you want to do that? Maybe, if we try it this way, I said, all right. Which he would sort of like temper it down.
All right, give you a couple schools. How about Westfield? What comes to mind when you think of them? I'll tell you what I think of. Those games down at College of New Jersey.
College of New Jersey. In fact, I still have a letter from the Westfield coach. We played in like probably one of the coldest.
The Cold Bowl.
Yeah. In fact, that was in we played it in '86. It was colder than heck. Okay. And we got back in '87, and we're going, and I says, wait a minute, we're not going out there with just what they used to say. Well, just put nylons on, for the girls, put nylons or something. I says, can't we get those, the
track tights?
Yeah, exactly. And I looked it up in the book, perfectly legal. And they said, were you the coach?
No,
I think with Charlie. Right.
Charlie
King was the guy that says, you're going to look like a green, whatever we said at that.
We were warm.
Cucumber or whatever. But we put them on, but it was so cold. Right? We were fortunate we did have them on. Now I guess from what I understand, it was the Westfield newspaper came out and said that we sort of like indicated that we were cheating on it.
Right. Well,
when I got to the book, I got the book out and I sent the coach a note and saying, please check the book. If you're going to badmouth this, at least do it in the right way.
Right.
And the guy checked it out and he sent me an apology.
Good. Louis, we got a few minutes left, so we're going to move on here. Your secret of success.
Having great kids. There are so many times where you have kids that might think they're just a a level above the other kids. Well, one of the things that I try to do is to make sure that everybody is the same. You know, you obviously you can't do that, but you know, you try to do it as much as you can, and then that's it. And
good. How about for the young coaches? As I was telling you before, we got a lot of new young coaches up there. What message would you give them, Coach?
Play to have fun. You know, work hard.
Keep it fun.
Keep it fun for the kids. There are some. In fact, there are a couple of situations where I asked a couple of kids to take a 2-3 days off, and then come back with a different attitude. You know, because if you're not going to enjoy the game, and you're going to be having negative vibes down on the field, it's not going to help.
Yeah. Well, we're running out of time, Louis, but I know we want to talk about the Franklin, Tennessee team, and some names like O'Reilly, Bongiovanni, Erin Kelly, Sue Kerr, Lisa Gagno, some of these All-Americans. We must have had 12-plus All-Americans on our team, but unfortunately, maybe we'll have to do another show. We have to talk about them later. But what I'd like to do, Louis, on behalf of all the players, and all the past players and all the coaches, and thank you for everything you've done for East Brunswick Athletics, and in particular what you've done for the girls soccer program. You were a class individual. Our kids always played hard. We played with a lot of dignity, and they knew when they're going to play East Brunswick, it was going to be a hard-fought, clean game. But so, Louis, on behalf of everyone, thank you. You know I'm going to miss you, and we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
So that's it. That brings our show to a conclusion here. And on behalf of Coach Kosa and Frank Noppenberger, thank you.